EAGLES, Eagles.
Welcome in, everybody, to a Wednesday edition of Birds 365 here on JAKIB Sports, preparing now and getting closer to that divisional round matchup, Eagles versus Rams. It's a 3 p.m. Sunday game, everybody. Johnny Mack, how you doing on this Wednesday morning as we inch closer to divisional round weekend, John?
Yeah, getting closer. Practice starts today. Eagles will be practicing at Lincoln Financial Field again all week, pretty much. They typically don't make that decision every day, but it's been so cold, the practice fields remain frozen, so they're going to be over at Lincoln Financial Field again for the entire week. It could always change, but that's the way it looks right now. And I don't think cold is a bad thing this time of year, especially when you're facing the Los Angeles Rams, who are not used to playing in that type of weather.
Yeah, no doubt, John. Looks like we might have some rain, some cold, some wind. I don't know. Who knows how it will play out on game day, but it does not look like a game that the Los Angeles Rams typically thrive in. Now, I'm not going to write them off because of it, but weather, I think, could be a factor in this one, John.
Yeah, and I think it's I think it's definitely a big advantage for the Eagles. Will be not necessarily the same last week with Green Bay, a team that was used to playing. Would have been the same with Minnesota, so I don't think it mattered because the Vikings are an indoor team. So,
right. And Detroit, they're all indoor teams.
Yeah, but unfortunately, Detroit's not coming here.
Yeah, right.
It would have been, I picked the Eagles over Detroit if the game was here. So that's why we're jumping ahead, but I can afford to do that. The Eagles can't, but I do expect it to be Detroit and Philadelphia in the NFC Championship game. I'm not hiding that fact. And, I'm going to pick Detroit. And if it were here, I'd pick Philadelphia. So that's how big that number one seed is.
Are you tipping your hand early on it?
I'm tipping it way early. I'm tipping this week. I'm tipping
wait a second.
NFC Championship game.
Wait a second.
I'm not changing, so
What if the Commanders, lose on a field goal in a 17-14 game, and they slow down that Detroit offense and put a blueprint up on what the Birds do, and the Eagles go 38-7 versus the Rams and destroy them? You're still taking the Lions in that game?
Yeah. What if Scarlett Johansson called me all those many years ago? It's not going to happen. So, I don't, but not that Washington can't win. They're an NFL team, but if they probably win, it's going to be, more like 34-31. I think the Lions are the best team, so I'm not wavering on that. So, why beat around the bush?
They are a special group. They're a damn good offense. John, real quick, one question before we get into some of the Eagles news from yesterday, and we're going to get into that, but just came to top of mind because of what you said. Who do you think's the better unit? All right, and I say unit, I mean one side of the ball left in the playoffs. Eagles defense or Lions offense?
Lions offense.
Do you think Lions offense is better as the one offense than the Eagles defense is as the number one defense?
Lions offense is one of the best offenses I've ever seen all time. And a lot of it's just legislation. You can't be, the old school fearsome foursome. Since we're the Rams, you can't be the old school purple people eaters. You can't be, those dominant defense. You're not allowed. So, part of it is taken care of by the rules of the game, the legislation of the game. You're not allowed. The Eagles defense is tremendous for a modern defense. We've talked about it all the time. Certainly the most surprising unit, probably in the entire NFL, as far as overachieving from where they were expected to be. Everybody expected the Lions offense to be good. And they are, but the rules take care of that question. The Eagles are not even permitted, nor is any defense allowed to be the better unit than the best offense in any particular year.
Right, because, I got you. I understand what you're saying there. Good stuff, Johnny Mac. Let's move into some of the Eagles news that came down yesterday. All right, bunch of roster moves, John, and I'll ask you to break them down for me, and then we'll continue to dive into the game. I want to thank everybody for being here this morning. Our great crowd, as always. Appreciate all you guys in the chat. Philly Don and Brandon Lewis, Daz, Joe Whip. What's up, Joe? Callie Baby, Fly Parks, Brian Fleming's in here, Niall Christian, Izzy B, and Chan. What's up, everybody? Anybody I missed? I didn't mean to miss you, but I appreciate you for being here. Don't forget to hit that like button for us, as it's one of the best things you can do to help the show grow. John, we've been having a big week, man. A lot of viewers here on Birds 365, so big thanks to everybody. John, roster moves yesterday, all right? Nakobe Dean obviously placed on injured reserve. Paris Campbell to the active roster. Nick Morrow and Elijah Cook.
Nick Morrow's back.
I like
Nick Morrow.
People on X like mad about Nick Morrow. I'm like, dude, you lost a linebacker. He's not going to be out there starting. He's a guy who knows the system. He was a confident.
I think it's a good.
Yeah, I thought it was a good back of roster move. I didn't see the outrage, John, and I saw a little
I
bit
never
of it.
saw the outrage.
Oh, I was getting it on my X.
Oh, no, I believe it.
Yeah.
I never understood why Eagles fans disliked Nick Morrow. I thought he actually did okay when he was here. Had some good games. Problem with Nick is when he played, he had some really good games. Remember the 3-sack game? And then when he played well, he played really well. And when he played poorly, he played really poorly. There was no consistency from week to week. But I think overall the Eagles have had far worse linebackers than Nick Morrow over the years as they've struggled to do things at that particular position until this year. So I thought, it's as good as you mentioned. He wasn't here with Vic, but same system, similar system. So he knows the system. Yeah, that's the best you can do. Again, it's January. We talked about that yesterday. Somebody brought up Quan Alexander in the chat. It's like, you don't want to bring in a guy who has no history with your not going to be able to help. Sometimes you have to. I brought up what happened to Miami with Vic last year with their edge rushers. They just got hurt. They had to bring people in off the street, and it didn't end well.
Yeah, I mean, people are saying, he didn't play well last year. Well, this is a different role than he was last year. He was
your
only
starter.
linebacker. Yeah, he was your only linebacker last year, which was a joke in and of its own right. But we're not in that position anymore. We needed a depth guy.
He's on the practice squad. He's at depth. Right. He'll probably get elevated.
Yeah.
Because he's probably more ready to help you than Dallas Gant. And we'll see how that shakes out.
Any other moves, John, yesterday? I think Joseph Nada was released. Was he released?
Yeah, Joseph Nada was released from the practice squad. They brought in Elijah Cooks, who was in Jacksonville. That's just one of those, all right. Maybe you can get a little bit better, get a head start on the offseason whenever it ends. Get him to a futures deal. Maybe he's got a little bit more upside. Paris Campbell, getting elevated. The Eagles like him. Obviously, there's some concern with the injury to AJ, so you want the depth there. And the good thing about the playoffs is the elevation clock resets. So you saw that last week.
Yeah. Right.
And you don't have to worry about not having elevations left, so they can manipulate it a little bit easier. So you can elevate if they want to elevate Kari Blossom game again. To give you that fullback look or what they did, or Nick Morrow, I would assume would be up this week, but we'll see. Probably depends more on special teams. If they like what Dallas was doing on Dallas Gant, I'm talking about, for people that don't know, is practice squad linebacker. They elevated him a couple times. If they like what he did, maybe they'll do it again. But Nick Morrow obviously has a ton more experience and he's been playing on special teams this year with Buffalo, so maybe they lean towards Nick Morrow, but you don't have to worry about that practice squad stuff in the playoffs about running out of elevation. So they can manipulate it a little easier.
Good stuff there, Johnny Mack. Any other new? The coordinators spoke yesterday, and I thought Vic Fangio said some good thing. Real quick before we turn into that, no other roster moves we missed though, right? That's all the manipulation that they did yesterday.
No, that's everything. Campbell to the 53-man, Morrow signed to the practice squad, Elijah Cooks, who's a wide receiver, to the practice squad, Joseph Nada released from the practice squad, and Nakobe Dean to IR. Obviously, his season is over, unfortunately. Had a great season, breakout season. And boy, you talk about bad timing late in the season, that type of injury. And this would have been the year the Eagles would have looked to extend him.
Yeah.
And now, you got to wait and see. Yeah, that's a very serious injury.
Yeah, no doubt about it. That could definitely alter. I saw a couple doctors breaking it down on social media, John. I think they were real doctors, unless I got duped. I'm pretty good at not getting duped on social media, but yeah, break it down. That's a tough injury to come back from. So we will see how Nakobe Dean progresses. Definitely failing for him. That tough injury at a tough time of the year. John, let's get into the coordinators who spoke yesterday. John, yesterday on the show, we talked about replacing Nakobe Dean. Obviously, you're going to have to replace him here in the postseason. And we talked about Oren Burks. And I don't want to say we brushed Jeremiah Trotter Jr. aside. We just both agreed and said that this was not the time to get a rookie involved. Well, Vic Fangio, I don't know, John. Based on what he said, I'm feeling like Jeremiah Trotter Jr. could be getting a little bit of a shot this weekend. Maybe not a full-time starting role, but definitely a chance to get on the field. Any takeaways from what those coordinators said yesterday?
Yeah, I said it was the Dallas game. And, when Nakobe was out, for the people that were listening, when Nakobe was out with an abdomen injury for the Dallas game, Oren started and they rotated Trotter in. And I said, that's what's going to happen this time. That's what's going to happen this time. And, I know people hear what they want to hear, but they didn't hear the context of it. And later Vic said, when he was pressed on it, because he left the door open. And I think the money quote for most people, I got to find it, was about, he's got a bright future and that future may be now. So I think everybody stopped listening at that standpoint. What happened in the Dallas game was Oren started, wasn't great.
Right.
Trotter came in. And, then they went back to Burks and they were rotating. And then Oren settled down and played well. And they never went back to Trotter until the game was out of hand and they took all the starters out. So that was already in that. And I explained that yesterday. That's what's going to happen this time. Now, Burks plays poorly and Trotter's in there and Trotter plays well. They're going to stick with Trotter. That's where we are. But when he was pressed because of that, he said part of it is both those guys are on special teams. So depending on the flow of the game, kind of like when Nakobe didn't play against Dallas, they had like a 7 or 8 play drive, and the Eagles had the pick six, if you remember. CJ got the pick six off Cooper Rush. Brutal throw by Cooper Rush, by the way. And they were right back on the field. And they drove it again. The Cowboys drove it again for like a 9-play drive. So the defense was on the field for 15, 16 plays. And the Eagles went 3 and out on offense. So they had a bunch of plays right there in a short span. So something like that would be a good time to sub them. That's what he did. And when they came back out, it was Trotter. And then they went back to Burks, and Burks settled down, as I said, and they stuck with Burks. So, I think that's what's going to happen. The same thing. And, it's sort of up to who plays well. And they're going to go with the hot hand. And that's what they did in the Dallas game. So I don't think anything's changed other than, Vic doesn't bullshit you. And he thinks Trot's got a good future, and that's a good thing.
We'll see what they end up doing at that position, John. It's gonna be tough to replace Nakobe versus, I think the Rams you'll be all right with it because they lost Tyler Higbee now. It looks like he's gonna play.
No, he's gonna play.
Yeah. That was a weird injury though, man. He got hit in the chest and then he was spitting up blood. They said so. He was at the hospital. I was like, dang, that was odd to me. But again, I'm not a doctor, so I don't know. But you hear somebody get sent to the emergency room after spitting up blood, you wonder what's going on there. So he did say he will play, but we'll see how big of an impact he is. And they don't quite have the pass catching back like the Lions do. Now, Kyron Williams is a good player. I'm not going to negate their ability to do it, but that's typically not where the Rams butter their bread per se. So I feel okay about it for this week, but it's definitely going to be something moving forward, John. This defense is the number one defense in the NFL. We talked about it, and I think they just lost an integral piece in the Kobe Dean. So gonna have to prevail. Gonna have to be next man up mentality, Johnny Mack, on that.
Yeah, and everybody deals with it. You know, injuries abound across the NFL, starting with you know, Detroit, and everybody's talked about how many injuries they faced and been able to persevere. Eagles have stayed very healthy. Nobody's going to feel sorry for him. I feel sorry for Nakobe, as I said, because he's having a great season, but it's what the NFL is. And, you know, you're not going to replace him. You don't have a player as good as he is. Nobody does. That's why starters are starters.
Right.
So you don't replace people, but you need to persevere, and that's what the Eagles need to do. And they did it very well against Dallas. Now, Dallas is a bad team this year, and they were playing a backup quarterback and all that kind of stuff. But they played very well with Oren Burks and some trot mixed in. Hopefully they can do the same against the Rams, who, you know, I don't want to dismiss them. I see a lot of people dismissing them. And that tends to, you know, turn me back in the other direction. But
and that's why yesterday I said
I feel very comfortable about this game. I can't lie. I can't picture, you know, Acho's there. You know, I've been saying it all week, but you know, he's obviously got a higher profile. And I want to pull up his tweet because he's 100% right. He basically said, you know, the Eagles tape showed me one thing against the Rams the first time. The Rams better have gotten in the weight room.
Yeah.
I mean, they got the shit kicked out of them.
Yep.
And what? How is that? How is that going to stop?
I don't know. I agree 100%. This is why I felt so good about it on Monday morning after everything unfolded, and we knew we were playing or Tuesday morning, excuse me, after the Monday night game. I don't see it with them. I'm not saying they're not great. I think Matthew Stafford is great. I'm a big Sean McVay guy. By the way, Celia wanted me to push back on you on something. I forget what. Do you believe Sean McVay is overrated?
Yes. How can he not be? Part of it's not his fault. I mean, he's been made out. I used to say the same thing about Vic. You know, I joked that I remember talking to Farzetta. He was the Greek god of defense. It was a joke because the Greeks are famous for the gods, and Farzetta, you know, pick up an AJ Brown bookmark. I mean, you know, it was a joke. Obviously, he's Italian. That's not the point. They've made Sean McVay to be out to be the godfather of modern offense in the NFL. And maybe he is, but modern offense in the NFL is a bunch of repetitive nonsense. And, you know, Vic's history is that he has stopped Sean McVay. You know, the Rams get very repetitive. I can predict what's going to happen. The Rams are going to look great on the first drive, and then they're going to get very repetitive. And things will settle down for the Eagles defense. If you go back to the first game, they were going right down the field, and people were going, uh-oh. And the Eagles were able to force the fumble on Kyron Williams, and they didn't even score. So it was the best case scenario. But the Rams offense looked very good, and then they get very repetitive. So, yeah, I think he's overrated, but that's not his fault. That's other people's fault who make him out to be, you know, something.
Do you think he's a great coach? You just think he's overrated because anybody who has a cup of coffee with him gets hired?
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
I do think he's a good coach.
Yeah, I mean, his resume is pretty impressive. I mean, that was Cilia's point when we were talking about this. He's like, did John say McVay's overrated? I don't see it. You know, in 8 years or whatever he's been as a head coach, he's got a Super Bowl ring. He's been to 2 Super Bowls.
Yeah, it's got nothing to do with Sean. But yeah, well, the first he got completely shut down by Vic's defense, and Vic wasn't even in the game.
Yeah,
Bill Belichick copied it, and famously so. I've written about it many times. Bill admits it. Sean admits it. Vic, a couple weeks earlier, that's why Bill sort of like a mini version of what the Rams did because of what the Lions did against the Vikings. Now, much higher profile, but the Rams were the Rams were the most explosive team in football that year, and Vic was with the Bears and completely shut them down late in the season. They scored 7 or 10 points, and Belichick saw it and just copied it in the Super Bowl. And the Patriots completely shut the Rams down. And Vic has done that. They haven't faced each other much, but every time they have, Vic has pretty much gotten the better of them. And I expect that to continue because he's very repetitive. But so is everybody else.
Yeah, it's true. What do John, in your estimation, just to look at this from the other side of things, obviously we're an Eagles focused show where, I'm in Philadelphia, you're in South Jersey, right by the city. We are obviously a Philadelphia Eagles focused show and perspective. But if you look at this from the Rams perspective, what would they have to do to win this game? Because if you look at the first game where it really wasn't a close game, John, I mean, it was what was it, 37 to 14?
Might have been the Eagles' most impressive performance of the year.
That's what I mean. And you look at the stats. I mean, and I know stats don't tell the full story, but Matthew Stafford was 24-36 for 243 and 2 touchdowns. Kyron Williams had 72 yards and a touchdown on the ground, and Puka Nacua had 9 catches for 117 yards. Like, if I told you that, I would say, all right, that's a solid game. The game is probably pretty close. Rams offense moved the ball well. They got blown out. Like,
Yeah.
what do the Rams have to do in this game offensively to even give themselves a shot? Is it 400 passing yards here?
Well, they have to stop Saquon Barkley at all cost. After, that was the game he had 255 yards, over 300 yards from scrimmage. So he even got involved in the passing game, which he seemingly never does these days. Had almost 50 yards receiving as well. Look, that's the problem. You look at it, and they're better. I don't expect it to be that bad. They were still dealing with a bunch of injuries on the offensive line, and their offensive line is very good, and they're all back. And they were missing, I think, 2 starters in that game before they had missed even more. So they got all their guys back. Puka and Cooper Kupp were just rounding into shape, and now they're both back to where they typically are. Stafford's playing well. Kyron Williams is a good back. So they're a good team. The defensive front, maybe the best young defensive front in football, as people talked about. The secondary's better than people give them credit for. They're a good team. And they haven't lost really since they lost to the Eagles. They lost week 18, but they were playing Jimmy Garoppolo and all their backups. They haven't really lost with this group since they lost to the Eagles. But, they don't match up with the Eagles. The Vikings have a poor offensive line, at least a poor interior offensive line. And then they lost Brian O'Neill and they had lost Christian Darrisaw. They have good tackles, but they were out of the game. Actually, Darrisaw got hurt when they played the Rams the first time. They had a really crappy offensive line, and Kevin O'Connell didn't adjust, and he's got Sam Darnold back there. And big problem with Sam, holds on to the football to begin with, and he's just holding on to the footballs. That's not going to happen in this game. You got the best offensive line in football against a bunch of guys who are 280. And I don't care how athletic they are. Acho put up the one, just a bunch of stuff. The particular play he just put up was just a run, to the right. Saquon Barkley, just, 7-8 yard run, whatever it was. That the whole defensive front is 5 yards pushed off the football.
All right.
Wasn't even one of the explosive runs. Just blown off the football. How is that going to change? I mean, You got Lane Johnson at 330. You got Jordan Mailata at 380. You got Landon Dickerson at 340. You got Mekhi Becton at 360, 370. How's that going to change?
Yeah, I don't.
And you could say, well, get the lead. If the Eagles defer, that was what was going on in the first game. The Eagles always defer. They'll defer again if they win the toss. You know, if the Rams win the toss, I think they should take the football. They probably won't, but I think they should take the football. You go down and score. Maybe you have a 7-0 lead. You're able to play from the advantage, and you get the Eagles throwing the ball, and you get that pass rush going. Bottom line is the Eagles aren't going to throw the ball more than 21 times.
I know, and I don't think they're going to have to at all.
Well, no, that's the point. So it's not going to be a situation where you get 9 sacks like they were against Minnesota. And even if they, the Eagles struggled in pass protection, what are they going to give up? A 3-4 sacks in the worst case scenario, and that half of those are going to be related to Jalen hanging on to the football. The best part of the Rams is mitigated automatically. Forget about them. That defensive front is the best part of the Rams, and they're mitigated. They're screwed. I hate to put it like that, but
no, I hear you. It's that's how I see it too. I don't think you're wrong at all. I think this game just looks. I don't know. Everybody's like, oh, we're overconfident, but I just don't see the way. I think that, John, you always say it. Styles make fights in the NFL. I do not see them matching up well with the Eagles. Let's get to a couple super chats here, Johnny Mac, real quick. I'll take a few super chats in this first hour. In hour number 2, wow, big super chat there from Chris. Chris, I'll get to that in a second. Thank you, brother. Big hour 1 here, and then in hour number 2, we are going to talk to Brandon Lee Goutland. You guys obviously know our usual Wednesday guest is Mike Gill, who is in Ladyboy land or whatever we called it in Thailand. So
Thailand getting a bad rep, but hey, fix your Ladyboy problem.
No, we should have. Yeah, I should have. We got listeners over in Thailand. I shouldn't be saying that. To our listeners in Thailand, thank you, and we love you, and thanks for reaching out to Mike Gill. Let's get to a couple super chats here. Jerry Hartfield, if you're scared of the Lions, just say that, bro. John's not scared of anyone, Jerry.
I don't give a shit. Why would I be scared? Why would I? You should be scared. You're the fan. I don't give a shit who wins.
Yeah, I think that's a misconception, John, a lot of times for maybe the newer people who don't watch the show every day. Obviously, for people who've been here all the time, they know. Brian Garner, thank you, brother. $20 super chat. Look at this. I remember the Bring It Home for Jerome hype song for the Eagles in '92 before the playoffs when I was a kid. The Eagles destroyed the Saints in the wild card and got boat raced by Dallas. Normally, talent over motivation.
Oh God, yeah. I mean, give me the better players over the bulletin board material, which I think is one of the most overrated things in the NFL. I keep bringing up the Acho clip because it's Mekhi Becton just put pancaking some guy. Yeah, you could talk about. I know the Rams made a big thing about. After the Lions beat the Vikings in Week 18, Dan Campbell, when Kevin O'Connell was shaking hands, and he said, "See you in 2 weeks," and the Rams made a big thing about that. Again, the Vikings didn't say anything. They're probably like, oh, we're screwed. But yeah, motivation. Who cares if you got the better players?
Yeah,
I'm with you 100%, Brian.
Good stuff, Brian. Thank you, brother. Appreciate it, man. Appreciate all your support this week, Brian. You were in here yesterday doing the same thing. So thank you, man. Alexander Harris checks in. Like I said on Monday, it's looking like Vic is thinking about putting Trotter in over Burks, even though Oren has the experience. Burks was bad Sunday. We'll see. I mean, he did kind of open that door up a little bit more.
Look at the Dallas game. That's what you're going to see.
Yeah, I agree. Alexander, thank you, brother, for the member for 5 months. 99C Diesel, $5. Thank you, man. Have you seen the video of special teams getting hyped up before the opening kickoff versus Green Bay? Even Saquon was hyping up special teams. I did not see that video. I don't know how it applies.
Yeah, the
to
Eagles put it up. I
I
mean,
didn't see it.
players are generally hyped up for the start of every game.
Yeah.
It becomes a bigger deal because they made a play. Like you could put up that hype. They do the same thing every day, but usually you don't force a fumble.
Right on the opening.
So you edit it and say, "Hey, we forced a fumble. Look at how hyped up we are." So I wouldn't take. It was a cool video though.
Yeah, I didn't see it. I'm gonna have to check it out after the show. And look at this. Look at this, Johnny Mac. 50 beans. Chris AM. My guy, thank you, man. That is really cool of you. All right. He says, much respect to the show. Zander and J-Mac, my favorites when it comes to Eagles news. I've been listening to J-Mac since 2015 with Mike Gill over at 97.3. John speaks so much truth, tends to always be right. Haha. All the haters can F off for real. Look at that, John.
Well,
we got people out here throwing jabs and boxing for Johnny Mac in this chat this morning. I love it.
Well, most of the stuff I say is not, it's not because I'm speculating, but it's part of it. People want, one thing I've learned is people want to be right. And, I think you brought up yesterday, like, I got to eat crow on Darnold. No, I don't. What do I care? Again, I just give my opinion. He had a great season, played really poorly cost himself a bunch of money too. I mean, when you're on, I think people don't understand, like when you're on the radio or our show every day and you talk about, you're not, you make predictions, you're not getting everything right.
No.
And by the way, your opinions evolve on certain players and certain things.
Yeah, because the games are changed, the players change, the moments change. I always say that to people. If you were up here talking football for multiple hours a day, you'd be wrong about a lot of shit too, right? I mean,
oh my God. But the stuff that, is, when I say, the Eagles, are going to put Nolan Smith on kickoff coverage. It's not because I'm guessing, but
the people will hold Saquon Barkley and Bryce Huff over your head, Johnny Mac.
Well, again, with Saquon, I argue I was 1,000% right. You were the guys, oh, you don't need a third receiver because Saquon's going to play in the slot as a receiver. Yeah. What I got wrong about Saquon Barkley is his explosiveness in the running game. As far as what would happen, wouldn't be relevant in the passing game. Yeah, I think you got to look in the mirror. But again, people forget about what they say. Remember, go back in the off season, and it's Kellen Moore's going to scheme these people open, and Kellen Moore's going to do this, and the motion.
I remember.
They've all forgotten about it.
Saquon's
you don't need to worry about the third receiver because Saquon's going to beat this guy in the passing game. They don't even use him in the passing game. He's caught, like, ever since the Rams game, he's averaged under 20 yards per game in the receiving game. They don't even use him.
No, they don't.
He's had an historic running year and deserves all the credit in the world. So is that offensive line, though. Again, I had him at 16 to 1,700 total yards. He exploded that, but it's all because of the running game, which I said would be better. And I said they would be a better finishing team. Now, with Bryce Huff, he stinks. I got that wrong. But more important,
Bryce Huff was really the one, because you're right. I mean, look, people say Saquon wasn't going to be a difference maker. That's what people always say to me. But you did predict 1,800 yards total from the guy.
Yeah,
he got what,
which is ridiculous. So they hear what they want to hear. But with Bryce Huff, first of all, did I get it wrong? Yes,
everybody got it wrong.
The bigger issue, your team, your favorite team, got it wrong.
Yeah, right.
That's the bigger issue. They're the ones that paid him $51 million. Now, part of it's injuries. And he did get hurt, and that's a real injury, and he had real wrist surgery. And when he had wrist surgery, It's a big deal when you're a defensive front player because you got to use your hands. But he was not playing well before then, and Nolan Smith lapped him. That's why we're talking about it last week. Kept saying what Bryce Huff like he's a starter. He's not. He hadn't been a starter since I don't know week 6, week 7. At first it was Brandon Graham, then it was Nolan Smith taking over. Yeah, I mean, you think Howie Roseman doesn't get evaluations wrong? Guess what? He got Bryce Huff wrong.
Yeah.
Why are you giving Howie shit?
What a letdown he's been, John. Did you hear Vic Fangio yesterday about him? I mean, holy mackerel. They don't even care about him.
Alex Hunt's ahead of him now.
I mean, he's like, yeah, we like the 3-man rotation.
And part of it is, yeah, Vic just doesn't like him as a player.
Well,
so.
What are they going to try and do with him, you think? I know we shouldn't go into that because we got a playoff game coming up.
By the way, you should be very happy that because if Sean Desai was here, I hate to go pick on Sean Desai, but it's a Rams week and Sean Desai's with the Rams. So I'm sure people are going to find him in the
the revenge game.
Yeah. If Sean Desai was here, you'd probably have to play Bryce Huff. Vic is at the point of his career, and he has the reputation where it's like, I don't give a shit if you paid the guy $51 million. I'm not playing him because I think so-and-so is a better player. There are very few defensive coordinators with that kind of cachet. Most coordinators, Sean Desai, would have to play Bryce Huff.
Yeah. How about Nolan Smith finally coming along, making that whole thing a whole lot easier. So he's been amazing, Nolan Smith, John. I'm predicting big things for him in the future. And that's a guy I will eat my crow on. Early at the start of the year, I thought he was just going to be a nothing burger. Didn't look the part to me. I didn't think he was going to be able to contribute at a high level. And he has really turned the corner.
Well, I don't know how long you're going to end up. You're going to get a lot of shit wrong when it comes to evaluation.
Oh,
because
absolutely.
Everybody gets a lot of shit wrong.
Yeah, the NFL GMs get stuff wrong, and they're paid millions to do it. So I'm not upset about it. I'm just acknowledging how good Nolan Smith has been, man, because he is.
Oh, he's been tremendous.
I mean, John, he's starting to look like he could be that dominant guy. I'm not going to go, obviously, top 3, top 5 guy in the league, but I think he could have a Hassan Reddick level impact next year. I really do.
I'm not going to go that far, but he's a very good player. I think the next step is, and it might come this weekend. It might come that quickly because last weekend watching the game, the Packers were much more concerned with Josh Sweat, which makes sense. And he's still getting a lot of one-on-ones. If he keeps performing, that's going to change and people are going to start chipping him. That's the next standard. That's where you got to see when it gets to that level, how you handle that. Hassan Reddick, and I'm not talking about this Hassan Reddick today, and I think the Eagles made the right decision with the contract, the age, and all that kind of stuff. But in that year, the 2020, he had one of the best defensive years of any Eagles defender in history. So I'm not going to say he's getting to that level, but the next year, Hassan wasn't the same. He wasn't that. You can't keep that pace up. Well, some people can. The really top tier guys are TJ Watts of the world are very, very consistent from year to year. But if you're talking about Hassan Reddick 2022 heights, yeah, I'm not going that far. But Hassan Reddick 2023 wasn't Hassan Reddick 2022.
Right.
So it depends what you mean.
I think a big impact. I don't know about 18 Saturday. How many did Hassan have in 22? Was it 18?
Well, he was over 20 when you count the playoffs.
Yeah.
But the Super Bowl was, I don't want to bring up the field, but that helped.
Yeah, that was a problem, though. I mean, come on, let's call a spade a spade. That field was a problem for both pass rushers in that game. So got to prevail, but,
completely wrecked the NFC Championship game. Completely single-handedly wrecked the NFC Championship game.
Yeah, which is pretty crazy to think about. Edge rusher destroys an entire NFC title game. Good stuff, Chris A.M. Thank you, man. That's really cool of you to do that, bro. $50. We appreciate the hell out of that. Thank you, man. Mike M. Zander, the studio's coming together nicely, bro. Thank you, Mike. Put in some work this weekend. I'm happy you like it, man. I love it. I think it looks a lot better than it looked. Me and John were just talking about how much of a pain in the ass green screens are. So I'm happy I no longer have to deal with that. Maybe John will be next. Who knows? We'll talk about it. D. Hughes checks in. Fans already complaining about Sean Smith officiating this game.
I saw that. I'm like, come on.
Coaches better be talking to CJ Gardner-Johnson and Carter a little extra
geez.
this week. No foolishness.
I don't care.
Somebody already debunked it though. I saw someone put out there that we're 0-3 with him this year. We're not. We're 2-1 with him officiating this year.
Well, shockingly, people have put out. I do not care about the officials, and I'm certainly not going to complain about the officials before the game starts.
Since 22, he's officiated 3 games. All right, 22 versus Green Bay, we won. 23 versus Kansas City, we won, and then this year at Washington game. That's what people are hung up on, John. Remember, he threw CJ Gardner-Johnson out of the
yeah. By the way, CJ has since he actually helped you because CJ seems to have matured a bit and understands his importance to the team and understands he has to do things in a different way and has verbalized that. So maybe Sean Smith helped you in the long run. Maybe a good way to look at it there. Big thanks to everybody for our super chats today. We appreciate all of you guys, man. Major support on the show. Don't forget to hit that like button for us, John. John, we set a record yesterday. Now, maybe it had something to do with me giving away stuff like hotcakes. Always does.
After the show, and I'm asking for likes, and I'll give away something else. But we had a massive like day on Birds 365 yesterday.
Well, you should always, when you're giving something away, you should always make it contingent on likes because you're going to get the likes and
likes or members or super chats, whatever the case may be. But yeah, yesterday we got 550 likes on the show. So big show yesterday, and we're up to 119 today. So hit that like button for us, guys. We appreciate you guys being here. We're going to get to our first commercial break. When we come back, we'll continue to dive into this Rams game. I am of the belief, John, before we get to our break, that the Rams have no chance at stopping our run, and because of that, might have no chance in the game. Now, maybe I'm going too far. Maybe I am overlooking a divisional round opponent, but I'm getting an early feel, John, that this game could be a little bit of a runaway because I just don't think they match up well, and we'll talk a little bit about that after the break. Big thanks to all you guys again. Let's get to that commercial break, all right? I'm going to tell you guys about the great people at BetUS before we do it. Check out the promo code. I just put it on your screen, and these guys have been sponsoring us all year long, and we can't thank them enough for being the main sponsor here on the 2-hour show today, and they'll be with us all off season long too as well. So check them out. Go use this promo code YouTube150. It gives you a huge sign-up bonus up to 150%, and then you also can get even 125% on your second and third deposit, all up to $2,000. So you're talking about, deposit $500-$600 and you can get close to $2,000 to play with here on BetUS. So go and check them out. Use the promo code YouTube150. It's betus.com.pa. That's betus.com.pa. They have the fastest payouts in the industry, 24/7 customer support, and they'll even give you your own custom account manager if you need it. All right, so go check out BetUS, and a big thanks to them for sponsoring the show today. We'll be back in 3 minutes, everybody, on Birds 365. Stay tuned. We got good stuff coming up.
Ignite